Welcome to the Clean Hits podcast. Joining us today is none other than KSL's Coley Bagley. He's a seasoned local sports journalist who's covered everything in Utah sports from high school athletics to college bowl games. Most recently, Cole has been covering the Utah Hockey Club for KSL, one of Utah's top sport networks. So, welcome, Cole. We know you got all the inside scoops and were there for a lot of the rookie training camp, rookie camp, and being able to cover the tournament. So guess what? We want to hear all about it. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Yeah, thanks for having me on, guys. Super excited and just love to see kind of the Utah Hockey Club community continuing to grow. I know that you guys aren't in Utah, but just to see so many people follow the team and connect and get together is what hockey's all about. So
Yep.
yeah, just excited to be here and talk all things Utah hockey.
Awesome. Well, you kind of gave us a little tidbit about yourself being a native from the area. So we got to know, what was it like when you first heard the news that Utah and SLC were getting an NHL team? Do you remember where you were, what you were doing? Let's hear all the details.
Yeah, so I don't exactly remember where I was, but I do remember just pure joy, just unbelievable. I mean, just an unbelievable feeling. As someone who grew up in a hockey community here in Utah since I was about six, I never thought that the NHL would ever find its way to my home state. It never felt like an NHL destination because it was, for the most part, going to have to take some sort of relocation or expansion. And I just didn't feel like hockey was ever big enough to find its way to Utah. But when I saw the announcement, just pure joy. And the second thought that I had is, what are the job opportunities?
Yeah. Yeah.
How can I get involved? And so did everything in my power to find an opportunity, and here we are. Covering the team in its inaugural season. So just excited and truly honored to be a part of this new team.
Awesome. Yeah. How did you work your way up to getting that kind of role of being able to cover them for KSL, if you don't mind us asking?
Yeah. So like I said, I started playing hockey when I was six and just fell in love with the sport. So I followed the NHL for pretty much my entire life.
All
I'm
right.
28 going on 29 now. And I've actually a Pittsburgh Penguins fan, and
Okay. Okay.
I have no connection to Pittsburgh. But when I started playing hockey, is when Sidney Crosby started coming up in the juniors, and was drafted by Pittsburgh, and we were looking for a team. And I had a buddy on one of my youth teams who wore a Crosby jersey, and I thought the logo was interesting and the name was interesting, and so we just clung to him. And my dad, myself, and my sister, we've been diehard Pittsburgh Penguins fans for the last 2 decades, as long as Crosby's been there. So we've watched a lot of his big games. The Winter Classic, the original Winter Classic back in 2008, his first Stanley Cup in '09, the back-to-back years back in 16 and 17. I've got about a dozen Crosby sweaters and assortment of T-shirts. So that's kind of how I came to be a hockey fan. And then in terms of getting my position, so I've been in journalism for about 5 years. I've covered the University of Utah, primarily football, since 2020. So I've covered two Pac-12 championships, a couple Rose Bowls, probably 75-80% of the games. I've actually was down in Tempe when they played ASU
Yeah.
a couple years ago. So I got to be up over at ASU and their press box and their field, which is really cool. Kind of how it's between those two little mountains, which is really, really awesome. So I'd had journalism experience. I love hockey, and somebody at KSL, a friend of mine, told me, "Hey, we're hiring for the Utah Hockey Club position. Are you interested?" I said, "Yeah, you bet, I'm interested." So probably the most I've ever prepared for an interview. And they interviewed me on a Wednesday. They hired me Thursday, so I must have done something right, said something right. And it's probably the most excited I've ever been about a job. It legitimately brought tears to my eyes when I
Wow.
found out that I got it, because hockey is just a part of my identity. It's who I am. It's like in the movie Miracle, where Herb Brooks, says, "You're born to be a hockey player." I was born to be a hockey player, not a very good hockey player, but I was born to be a hockey player.
Then you're born to cover it.
Yeah, exactly. Born to cover it. So yeah, that's how I came into this position, and it's been a pedal to the metal for the last 6 weeks. But I've loved every minute of it, and I just can't believe like we're here. Hockey season is officially upon us, and I'm just so excited.
Yeah. So speaking of that, rookie camp just kind of wrapped up. Tournament, Utah Hockey Club went 1-2. What were some of those initial impressions of the camp?
Like the camp or the tournament, or like everything as a whole?
I guess both pieces. Yeah, they're a little bit different. So just kind of, I guess what we want to call the vibe of camp, and then just kind of how the tournament went.
Yeah, camp was awesome. So they held 2 days of camp out at the Utah Olympic Oval. I grew up playing there, so I was familiar with the facility. It's actually kind of unique. You come in the facility, and then to get to the ice, you actually have to go downstairs, which is where the locker rooms is, and then you come up in your gear up a set of stairs. You come around a corner, and then there's the hockey ice sheet. So it was kind of funny to watch the players coming up, very carefully tiptoeing in their skates up those stairs and onto the ice. But it was awesome. I mean, it was an electric atmosphere. I mean, all the media were out there. The TV crews, the journalists, such as myself, and we got to talk to Bill Armstrong and Chris Armstrong. The new broadcast crew was there, which was fantastic. And kind of something that Bill says, it was just a really cool kind of winter sports atmosphere. You had the Utah Hockey Club rookies out on the ice, practicing. They have a speed skating track that actually goes around everything. So there's speed skaters going around, and then there's another ice sheet where they have curling and other things. So really cool setting. And then to see, even though it's the rookies, even though it's a lot of those guys are never going to wear a Utah Hockey Club sweater officially. It was just cool to see them there, to watch them, in the new practice jerseys and coming out onto the ice and to kick off the inaugural season. And just kind of the biggest takeaways from those 2 days was Maverick Lamoureux is a defensive unit, and that kid is huge. He's 6'7". Like, I thought I was big on my skates because I'm about 6'1". So you get on my skates, I'm about 6'3", 6'4". No, this dude is like 6'7". So he's what, like 6'9", 7 feet tall when he's out on the ice. Yeah, still growing. And he looked phenomenal. They were doing a hitting drill right in front of me, so I stood right up almost against the glass, and he hit Baudois pretty hard right in front of me. So that was like, wow, this kid's got some power. And then just watching everything, just trying to get as many takeaways as possible. But for the most part, Lamoureux and Baudois, as you'd anticipate, first round picks, they definitely stood out the most from that camp. So there were some other guys making a little bit of noise, but it's tough, right? Like, it's two training sessions. It's not like, oh man, this guy's clearly standing out. It's like, well, we watched them for 2 hours and they ran practice drills. So, but as much as guys can stand out, Lamoureux and Baudois for sure.
And one guy who didn't really have an opportunity to stand out was kind of the crown jewel of the prospect set who was there at camp, which was Tija Ginla. And that ended up being one of the bigger stories out of rookie camp, was that he was unable to participate, right? So anything you can share about that situation and what you think his availability will be for main camp?
Yeah, to my knowledge, he suffered a lower body injury over the last couple of weeks. I don't know if that was in just some sort of like personal training or, maybe training for Kelowna or something like that. But they just held him out as a precaution. It's nothing major. It shouldn't hold him out for a very long period of time. And I anticipate he's going to go for training camp the next couple of weeks. I think he'll be out there. I think they held him out so that he would be ready to more so show, hey, this is what I can do against legitimate NHL talent, not a collection of rookies and guys mostly out of the juniors and lower leagues. So I anticipate he's going to go.
And that's awesome. And that makes sense. I mean, he was just at the Team Canada camp for the World Juniors Summer Showcase. So they kind of had eyes on him in that sort of a setting, right? So a little bit redundant maybe. So awesome that he'll be ready to go for main camp, hopefully. Now, Cole Baudouin and Mav Lamoureux stole the show, just like most of us would expect with their lofty draft position. Were there any kind of dark horse standouts in camp? Maybe if you had to pick one kid from this group, well, maybe that's two questions. First of all, any standouts in camp that were a little bit lower down the lineup? And then secondarily, anyone at this camp that you saw that you think might make a little bit more noise at main camp than maybe people might expect?
I thought Allard was really good, and not just because he scored 2 goals, but just once he scored, it kind of drew my attention a little bit. Because coming into this, not a ton of I've done a little bit of homework, but there's so many guys and they're coming from so many different places. It's hard to keep track of everybody. So, occasionally it took okay, I need somebody to really do something before I can really start watching him. So once Allard scored, watch him a little bit, closer, and I like he seemed to be really physical. He seemed to be scrappy and not similar to Baudouin, not quite as talented, I think, in terms of his work that he does in the corners and everything. But I did like what I saw from him. Crashing the net, putting shots on net. I mean that OT winner, that was a phenomenal shot. I mean that's a top shelf, old fashioned slap shot that we don't see very often. And so I would say that for me, he was kind of the standout, and not just because he scored, but paying a little bit closer attention to him. He was doing the things that you like forwards to do. He's getting in on the forecheck. He's being physical. He's he's lighting the lamp. He's getting assists. There's not much more that I think he could have done, especially coming in. I don't know that he was super high on the lists of, hey, these are guys that we're going to really watch. In terms of who might have a better training camp than people might expect, I think Lamb is going to show that he's not far off. I don't anticipate him making the opening day roster or anything like that. But I think in terms of players who are in terms of the players who are the closest to putting on a legitimate Utah sweater, I think Lamb might have the best shot. The coaching staff told us over the last couple of days, hey, this kid's further along than we anticipated, especially offensively. I mean, he was, again, he's a player that scored, but if you were watching him, he was running the point really, really well. He was patient. He was asking for pucks. He was looking for guys. He was feeding the slot. He was dumping it into the corners and connecting with forwards. His game is so much further offensively than I think coaches were anticipating, that he's going to be knocking on the NHL door very, very soon. I wouldn't be shocked if, maybe it's almost like a Josh Doan type situation if, the season goes a certain way where they call him up towards the end, or if there's just a bunch of injuries that pile up and, they need to call a defender up and they want to give him a shot. I wouldn't be surprised. And then going into next year, I think he's going to have a pretty legitimate shot. If he can, I think he needs a little bit more weight. I mean, he's strong. Don't get me wrong, he's strong. I mean, if you were watching him, in front of the net, he was moving guys without ease, and then he absolutely busted up that Golden Knights player in that brawl, which I thought was fantastic. Part of the problem was that I don't think the other player could reach Lamoureux's face, just given how tall he was. But he put him on, he put him on the ice pretty quickly and landed a couple shots. So I'm excited to see what Lamb does. But like we talked about, I'm really looking forward to see what Teej does. He's playing his best hockey. He's playing the best hockey of his life. He's coming off a phenomenal season with Kelowna. He had a great showcase for Team Canada. And, how good is he? How does his offense stack up against the likes of NHL defensemen, Sergachev and Dursey and Ian Cole and Marino? As much as I'm excited to see what Lamoureux can do, I'm chomping at the bits to see, okay, where is Teej? Are we looking at a year from now that maybe he's going to make the roster? Is it 2, 3? I can't wait to see what he can do.
Yeah, and players like Tej, I think, are really exciting because there's a certain level of rising your draft year and the stock it puts on to that player as you progress through their draft year and you get closer and closer to the draft. We've seen this time and time again, especially a couple years ago. Patrick Laine was probably the ultimate riser in the past couple seasons. Even the Capo Caco was, and sometimes they live up to that hype and they just keep on growing exponentially. And sometimes it can kind of stagnate a little bit. So obviously there's going to be a huge year for Tej, but those first glimpses of him playing against NHLers, I think is going to be really special. And I think that's going to be kind of one of those barometer spots of being like, okay, he's not ready to make the team yet. He's still very, very young, but holy cow, he was still eye-opening at training camp. And that's kind of the expectation that you're hoping for. So that's exciting to hear.
If nothing else, this job is worth it just because I'm going to get a front row spot to see what he can do. Like I'm going to be like a kid in the candy shop, just like, all right, here he comes. Well, what's he going to do? Oh, toe drag. Wow. He just smoked Sergachev. What's this kid capable of? So yeah, it's exciting.
Yeah, and he definitely showed out in Kelowna last year, especially during crunch time. To your point, Brad, it was that meteoric rise. He started off mostly ranked in the second round after playing, checking line center for that powerhouse Seattle team the season before in the Mem Cup run. He gets traded to his kind of hometown-ish, where he makes his home half the time anyway, Kelowna Rockets team that was a little thinner and had more room to give him a starring role, and he took it and ran with it. And that meteoric rise you mentioned, culminating with really a phenomenal WHL playoffs. Kelowna didn't really have the juice to get out of those playoffs, but it wasn't certainly any shortcoming of Tej's, that's for sure. And it's funny, Owen Allard, who you mentioned, who had been passed over twice in the NHL draft, he actually had a lot of helium this year too, Brad. He kind of rose out of nowhere. And if you watch the OHL playoffs, his work for the Sioux Greyhounds was phenomenal. And it's exactly what he showed at the rookie camp, Cole, what you described, just being a menace in that slot, knocking in goals. He had really great goal scoring output in the OHL playoffs, so much that he goes from a kid who got passed over twice to a kid who goes in the middle rounds to Utah Hockey Club and has an opportunity to show up as a 20-year-old and further entrench the name he's made for himself. So that momentum is huge that these kids are carrying forward. So that's really exciting to see.
Yeah, I mean, I think he could have a role on a checking line, in the NHL, just given his physicality. He can bang around with the best, and he's scrappy, and he does, at least he does everything that I think someone who belongs in that role, if he can continue to develop and get a little more experience beneath him. Maybe he's got a role in the NHL on a checking line. We'll see.
He's got the motor for it. That's for sure. He's got the motor. And, the rookie camp created quite a buzz. I'm sure that the main camp is going to create quite a buzz, but it probably won't compare with what's going to happen as we approach August 8th. What can you tell us, Cole, about the buzz in town between the official announcement and now? What have you seen on the streets, in the rinks, and around town in Salt Lake City?
It's crazy. Like I said, I mean, hockey has come a long way. The Olympics had a lot to do with that. Vegas and their proximity had a lot to do with the growth of hockey. We've hosted the Frozen Fury preseason game for the last couple of years, and there's been they've sold those games out. They didn't quite pack the arena to max capacity, but there's certain things keeping them from doing that. But for the last couple of years, they've sold that event out. I've had the opportunity to cover it, and so hockey's grown a lot. But I did not anticipate this kind of interest or welcoming from Utah. I mean, one morning the team is in Arizona. You go to bed the next morning. The next morning you wake up. Suddenly the team is in Utah, and it's almost like somebody snapped their fingers, and we are suddenly a diehard hockey state. That's so nuts. The amount of season ticket deposits. I think they had somewhere between 28 to 32,000 people put down, $100 ticket deposits for season tickets. Like, that's crazy. And as far as I'm aware, they've pretty much maxed out the sales on season tickets for the season. And there's still people on a waiting list hoping to get them at some point this year or next year. So it's just been incredible, and you're starting to see people wearing the swag. You're starting to see Utah Hockey Club T-shirts and hats and hoodies, and people are dying to get their hands on those new sweaters. I personally I love them. They don't compare to those Arizona sweaters. They don't. Like, that for me. That old school Coyote is a top 5 sweater of all time.
Yeah.
It's just so well done. It represented Arizona so well. There's so much symbolism behind it, and it just looks cool. But I think these Utah sweaters are great for the time period that they had to get it done. It's very hockey with that diagonal text.
Yep.
And here in Utah, we're big on state pride. We're proud to be from Utah. So the fact that our first sweaters are going to just have the state on them, I think, is why a lot of people are. And I love the colors. That the blue for me is actually one of my favorite colors. So I think it looks fantastic. But yeah, I mean, people are they're excited. I think most people don't really know a lot about hockey, which is fine. And why would they at this point? But Utah shows up, and they're going to pack the arena. It's going to be loud, and that first game, everything's going to be just unbelievable. The volume in there is going to be deafening. When the players take the ice, the lid is going to pop off of the Delta Center. And as they do introductions, people are just going to be excited, and then hopefully we see the first goal in franchise history that night, and a W. If they can score and they can win, that place is going to be rocking. I've been able to attend a lot of Jazz games there throughout my life. I've been to NBA playoff games there, and I anticipate an NBA playoff type atmosphere for this opening hockey game. I think it's going to be one of the most incredible. It's going to be one of those nights where people ask, like, where were you, when the puck dropped in Salt Lake City? Were you there? And if you were, tell me everything about it.
Awesome.
I think, just looking back to the last couple of Arizona seasons, if we can end the trend of starting the season with multiple losses, multiple games without a goal, if we can start a clean slate in Utah, that would be amazing. And I think you're bang on there, Cole, what the Smith Group has been able to accomplish since the sale. Sale went through mid-April and didn't even close to, I think, June. So what they've been able to accomplish in those 4, 5, 6 months has just been incredible. And you mentioned, starting. This is sort of a dream job for you. Are there any particular storylines you're looking to cover? And maybe this is something, if you see what Vegas did in their first season, are we going to see maybe similar storylines to what they were able to accomplish? I mean, I don't think Utah is going to go to the Stanley Cup final, but who knows?
Yeah, that would be unbelievable. Yeah, for me, it's been like someone who grew up playing hockey and just loves it. And knows, a good amount about it. A lot of it's been education. It's been helping people understand who are these players, what are the rules? What is the NHL all about? Who are these teams we're going to be playing? Who are the big names? And so, we have done a lot of groundwork on just helping people get to know the team, get to know the league, get to know the division, get to know everything there is, because I don't want people to just go to these hockey games and be like, well, there was a fight, so that was kind of fun. Like, no, like, you went to a hockey game and, Logan Cooley had an OT winner from the slot, bar down, and, the place went crazy, and Clayton Keller had 2 assists, and Sergachev dropped the gloves with somebody. Like, I want people to understand what they're watching. Yeah, other things that I'm excited about is I'm looking forward to asking some of the big NHL stars what they think about Utah. What is it going to take for Utah to turn into a hockey town, a hockey state? When Sidney Crosby comes to town, I'm going to ask him, what do you think? How was your experience here today? What did you think about the Utah crowd? How was the atmosphere? How does this compare to Pittsburgh? And what things about Pittsburgh should Utah do to really embrace this franchise and embrace this team, so that when people come to town, they know, hey, Salt Lake City is a hockey town.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the calendar here. Pittsburgh is in town January the 29th, so I'm sure that'll be a surreal night for you too as a Sidney Crosby fan.
Yeah, I'm going to Pittsburgh as well. I think they play them in
Awesome.
November, so I'm going on a 2-game road. Well, it's a 4-game road trip, but I'm just hitting 2. I'll be in Boston because you got to go to Boston. Like that's a hockey town. It's original
Mhm.
6. You got to go to Boston, and then I'm going to Pittsburgh. I've never been to Pittsburgh. I've seen Crosby play in person, but I've never been to Pittsburgh. So myself and then actually my parents are going to come and enjoy a game there in Pittsburgh. See Crosby in his natural habitat, and I'm really looking forward to it.
That's awesome. That's going to be a really cool night. Just one other question for you. I'd like to end it with a fun one that we like to ask all our guests. So we've seen the team naming contest started with 20, got down to 6. So we'd love to hear your thoughts on what the team name should be. And those final 6 are Outlaws, Venom, Blizzard, Mammoth, Yeti, and just sticking with the hockey club.
It's tough because I like a lot of them. I think the original branding has been very good, even though it is very simple. Again, like I said, I love the colors. I love that they wanted to include the community. I think that's an awesome thing to have the community be a part of naming this, so that they feel like they were a part of something, like they were critical in the role, and they take kind of ownership over the club. So the original branding, I like it. I've got some T-shirts, I've got some hats. I've got the draft
Mhm.
tag because that's a must-have
Nice.
item right there.
Yeah.
That's the first draft tag in franchise history. In terms of names, my favorite was Outlaws, just because I feel like there's like historical significance. With a lot of the old the old West, Butch Cassidy and, there's a bunch of old outlaws that came through, parts of Utah, which I think would be cool. You could call the Delta Center the saloon or, the barn or something like that.
Mhm.
They could have after they score a goal, they could play gunshots or something. I don't know, something like that. I just think there could be some sort of cool branding that goes there. I don't really like Blizzard.
No.
It's
Very
just
much agree
not
on
like
that.
it's just
Yeah.
kind of weird. I didn't really love Venom either. Like they're
Those
just not.
90s. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's just not like okay. Like any team could be called the Venom. Like let's try and be something that has to do with Utah or mountains or snow or something like that. Except
I'll give them the
Blizzard is
benefit of the
dumb.
doubt and think that they were thinking bee venom rather than snake venom.
Yeah, that's
But
what I
Yeah, but
heard.
that's not
but
what you
nobody else
think.
is thinking of that. You know what I
No.
mean? So
Like, yeah, we're the beehive state, but nobody knows that. Like,
yeah.
you only know that if you're like from Utah or like maybe Idaho, Arizona. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think that's what they were going for as well. Mammoth is cool. Like, I wouldn't be upset if it was Mammoth. Basically, if it's Outlaws, Mammoth, or Yeti, I don't really care, to be honest. Like, yeah, when they first announced the names, I was very opinionated, but at the end of the day, like it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like we're gonna watch. We have an NHL team. We're gonna watch hockey. That's what matters. It
Yep.
doesn't matter what's on the front of the shirts and what the logo is. Now, there's plenty of people here that will argue with me on that. But ultimately, I do think it's going to end up being Yeti, which it goes with the colors. It's cool. It kind of goes along with that like mythical creature thing, like Seattle and the Kraken. Like, and I think it rolls off the tongue nice, like Utah Yeti. Like, I think that's cool, and I think it's going to look good in the colors. Like the black, the rock black, the salt white, and the mountain blue. Like, it's going to look pretty awesome. So, if I had to pick one, like if it was up to me, I'd pick Outlaws, but I'm not going to be upset whatsoever if it's Yeti. I think it's going to be Yeti, and so let's just move along. Let's get it done. Let's get this out of the way because I am over talking about the team,
Yeah.
and I know the players in the front office are as well. So
Yeah, and I think that if they go with Yeti, two people that are going to be real pleased with that decision eventually, I think, is your two little kids, Cole. I think that kids love that Yeti name, at least in my experience. I coach a couple of youth teams here, and it's overwhelming. It's unanimous, actually. All the kids love Yeti far and above every other option. So that's why it's my favorite. It wasn't my personal favorite until I started polling youth hockey players, and
Yeah.
saw that it was the runaway favorite.
Yeah, I mean, they're building that training facility here in Utah, and I know they have plans for youth programming. I mean, junior Yetis, that's awesome.
Yeah,
That's so cool. Like that just sounds fantastic. So yeah, I'm not going to be upset. Like I'm just happy there's a team here, and this logo is going to be on a sweater that belongs to Utah. Like, let's just go. Well, let's drop the puck and let's play some hockey.
Yeah, it's going to be a really cool season.
Well said.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for joining, Cole. I'm glad that you got to start soaking up the NHL on Utah with the rookie camp, and now that training camp's about to start and the season's just around the corner, I'm sure you're not going to have a life until June.
Wait, I have a question for you guys.
Sure.
What do you guys think of those new sweaters? Because you're coming from an incredible, like I said, one of the best sweaters of all time, to a more simplified look. And I know that a lot of Coyotes fans have been not so nice about how the uniforms look, which I can understand. Like, I get it. I can't imagine, to lose a team that means so much to you. Like, that sucks. Like, that's not fun. But just curious, what you guys think, because here in Utah, everybody loves them. From what I've been told, the players really like them, and I've actually been told that a lot of other NHL players really like them. Like Josh Doan was getting tons of compliments, and when Kells was in Vegas last week, a lot of other NHL franchises were coming up and saying, "Hey, those are crisp, those are clean, those look good." So I'm just curious what you guys think.
Yeah, I think that obviously I love the Kachina. I mean, it's like you said, it's Hall of Famer jersey. It's so sick. But I think that doing something that insane and busy is like a moonshot. You got to thread the needle perfectly for that to work. And I think that any sort of approximation of that would have been an absolute disaster, right? So I think generally speaking, I prefer a much cleaner version of an NHL uniform, a lot like what these temporary ones look like for me. The Coyotes jerseys were just a complete outlier in terms of how phenomenal they were, despite kind of being antithetical to everything I like about hockey jerseys. So I think it was just such a unique thing that it really shouldn't work. It doesn't work on paper, but man, I did love them. So I'm glad that they went a whole other direction with a fresh start and a clean new kit. And I really like it. I love the fact that the blue pops so well off the black as just this electric little accent. I think it's great.
And I think part of the reason the blue pops is that no other team in the league uses this color. I know Columbus sort of has on a third jersey, and the Penguins when they had that powder blue, but nobody else has this color. A lot of teams have, dark blue, Toronto, Tampa. A lot of teams have red. Like 2/3 of the league is either blue or red between, those blue teams. Red is Chicago, Detroit, Carolina. Nobody else uses this color. And it's going to kind of follow what Vegas did with the gold, and then Seattle with the seafoam color. So this really makes it pop, and it looks great.
Yeah, on colors, Corey, like I think when it first came out, I saw a lot of chatter online like, oh, another black one. Oh, all black. How original. And I looked into that. That was a bit of a problem 10 or 15 years ago in the NHL where everyone was doing black, but almost everyone's backed off of it. And there are very few predominantly black uniform teams in the league now. There's so many more that are navy blue or red predominantly. Those are kind of overused, and black really is pretty unique in 2024, which is surprising to people who haven't paid attention in a while.
But I do want an all blue jersey.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Yeah, I think it's coming. I think next year, once they have the team named, what I'm anticipating is that we will that one of these Utah jerseys will stay. I think one of them is going to stay. I think it's going to be the white one, and then the black will get whatever the new logo is, and then I think we're going to get a mountain blue with whatever that new logo is as well. So it's going to be fun, and I think the jerseys are great. I love that as a whole. I feel like the NHL is kind of going back to the classics. Like the Anaheim Ducks jerseys look freaking sweet. I love the Kings jerseys. Like to me, that's just Kings. Like that's nostalgic Kings. And the Capitals are doing a throwback with the Screaming Eagles, not the red ones, the original black ones. The Screaming Eagles. I think I like that logo the most. Like I know like I don't like the spelling out of capitals. Like it's just not like whatever. It's just
It's like weirdly
boring.
spread out and kind of crooked.
Yeah.
I don't get it. The eagle was sick. Like I get wanting to use
So
red,
good.
white, and blue. That makes sense.
Yeah,
but
I get
the
that.
Yarmir Yager era capital screaming eagle was so sick. I totally.
When
agree.
Ovechkin came into the league, that was still the sweater. So it's like, I love that they're all going back. Calgary's got their kind of their more original look. The Oilers went back to more of their classic look. Like, just kind of shows that. Like I feel like now teams try too hard, so it's refreshing to just see like, here's a really good looking black jersey with blue and white accents, and it says Utah on it.
Do you want Pittsburgh to bring back the triangle penguin?
I actually love the Robo Penguin. Like I know that
we're alone.
I know it's not like super popular, but I think I bought the Robo when they did the reverse retro Adidas. They did the Robo Penguin. I got one. And I had been waiting for them to do that one. But I also love the diagonal Pittsburgh. I have one of those as well. Like, those are great. Again, simple things that just stand the test of time. I mean, somebody pointed out, they're like, I love that the Rangers jersey is really popular, but everybody's, being ridiculous about this Utah one when it's essentially the same like setup. Like, yeah, it's Rangers. Like that is one of the most iconic teams in the league, but it's like that Utah pretty much took their idea and put their own spin on, like own colors on it. Like,
that's why when I saw it, the same thing. Colorado used to have it one.
Tons of teams used to have that. Yeah.
Didn't Calgary did one? I think
Ottawa had one that said Sens, but it looked awful.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, that was bad. And Atlanta did something like that too, didn't they?
Oh man, dude,
Dallas had it across. Dallas had it horizontal.
Yeah.
Which wasn't
the basketball era where they looked like an NBA team. Yeah, just Dallas and had a front number. Yeah,
that was Dallas's weird era with the Muteris and everything else. So.
Stick to the basics.
We don't need Long John Silver for the Islanders coming back. Pump the brakes there. At least I'm going to have to put my foot down there. But Florida
did you guys
Panthers,
like those Arizona alternates from the last 2 years?
They look better on the ice than
orange.
they did in pictures.
The red ones.
No,
yes, the red ones
look
look better. Yep. In person, they were awesome. And the whole kit looked better, but the sweater by itself looked a little off.
Chrome helmets kind of grew on me too.
Yeah.
I like the Breezers. I'll say that. The Saguaro and the Breezers look great. I wish it was on both sides.
That's fair.
Yeah. And I think with the current setup too, I think there's some room to play around with helmet color, maybe glove color too. I mean, Kings kind of just threw out the silver helmets kind of out of nowhere, and I feel like Vegas did that same with the gold ones. Where, like they didn't really announce it, and then all of a sudden one day they're just out there looking like C-3PO. But so maybe one day we see the blue helmets or something like that out of the blue.
Think about powder blue and white gloves, man, with those whites. Yeah. That would look so sick.
Give me the blue helmet with one of the other jerseys. Like that would just pop like crazy.
Mm-hmm.
That would look so good.
So hey, look at this. They should hire us.
Honestly.
I know. That's all I'm hearing. That's all I'm hearing is good ideas.
Doubleday and Cartwright, we're coming for you. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, again, thank you so much, Cole. We're so proud that you're going to be covering this team. We're excited to see what you bring, and have fun while you're doing it. This is going to be an incredible journey for you, and make sure you stop on by throughout the season to give us some updates and let us know how things are going.
Hey, let's talk again and give me 2 weeks. Let's talk towards the end of training camp. How's that sound?
That sounds perfect.
Good.
Cool.
All right.
Well, thanks so much, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anytime. We'll talk soon. See ya.
We know we're running it now. Watch the game change.